Christians understand the Jewish story and more specifically the land of Israel. So I would take 50 Christians in and I would leave with 50 Zionists. And so I was doing that for several years, learning about the land, trying to understand the real history of what's unfolded. Because, you know, my upbringing was actually quite unique. My mother was born in a refugee camp in Egypt. And I grew up in a very Muslim Arab majority community in Sydney, Australia. In fact, one of the most radicalized communities in all of Australia is where I grew up and lived. So all my friends were Muslims and Arabs. So my first understanding of the Jewish people came from a Muslim Arab perspective.
Interesting.
And so the first time I entered into the land, I realized the discrepancy between what I'd been told and what is really happening on the ground. And so I wanted to educate myself and learn. And the more I learned, the more I understood the Jewish people and the beauty of what they're able to do, what they've created, and the struggles they've had to endure, the more I wanted to defend their cause. Now, when October 7th happened, I was actually just in my bed. I live in Georgia. I was about to go to sleep and I saw news of what had happened. And only 6 months earlier, I'd actually had been down to the Gaza border, visiting some friends of mine who lived in a kibbutzim along the Gaza envelope. And I had a vivid memory that one day I was sitting with a friend of mine. He lived, on the northern part of the Gaza Strip. And I was looking out his window while we were drinking a coffee, and I thought to myself, what if Hamas entered Israel right now and a terrorist walked past this glass window with a gun with an intent to kill? Mm-hmm. And it was just a passing thought, and it just shook me, and then I let it go because I thought that's not going to happen. The IDF is strong, they're one of the most advanced militaries in the world. And so when October 7th happened and I saw the reality of a thought that I had 6 months earlier, I was completely shocked. I instantly got out of bed and I went straight down into my basement to shoot content, because the one thing I've learned over the last 7 years is how the Palestinians operate, how they lie, how they deceive, and how they were immediately going to shift the narrative, because that's what they needed to do. What we saw on October 7th was barbaric. It was the worst of humanity. It was the most violent, wicked acts we will ever probably witness in our lifetimes. And I knew from that moment that the Palestinians were going to have to shift the narrative back to the victimhood. So I thought I have to get down into my basement and I have to start making content, because I know that this is the moment of time where everything is going to shift.
Wow. It was you documented so much stuff, and it was just, I remember seeing it and reaching out to you. One of the probably the question that I get asked the most, and I know everybody is moving and grooving, and it's been a long night, and it's fine to move and groove, but if while you're moving and grooving could just keep it down and just whisper and try to work on your tippy toes so the other people can hear everything, and so we can hear Nate.
And if you don't, we're going to send Sid to your table.
Right, or Curtis Sliwa. You want Curtis to come to your table? And not happy Curtis Sliwa? I could send Curtis there. I gotta snap my fingers. Curtis, come flying out of here. The question that I get the most consistently in America, regarding press, in Israel, is the reaction in Hollywood. I don't know why people are so curious about it, fascinated by it, and also disappointed by it. The lack of reaction. It's really, at this point, 14 months, it's the lack of reaction, the lack of support. And I answer it by saying, there are a few different categories. There are some people in my business, in our business, and a few people in here's business who really believe that. Can I say shit? Yeah. I know people are like, there are some people that, are confused. And that's why they have been sort of so pro-Palestinian, and they have had the audacity and the gall to show up wearing buttons that support terrorists. There's some people in our business that do a lot of things behind the scenes that people would like them to turn up the volume and do it in front of the scenes. And there are a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear because we are whether we're at the end of cancel culture, the middle of cancel culture, but there's a lot of fear. What has been sort of your take, feeling about the way celebrities in general, not just Hollywood, because there's actors, there's musicians who speak out about everything. The thing for me that's been so disappointing about it is traditionally in our business, from when Marlon Brando won the Oscar and he sent a Native American up there, to Sally Field and Jane Fonda, and there's been people that have spoken out about women's rights, women's pay, Black Lives Matter, the birds, the bees, pigeons, trees. They speak out about everything. And whether you like it, agree or not, people do speak out. But to see in 2024, January of 2024, the award season, to see so little, next to no support for even just the hostages or the feminists in Hollywood to even say anything about the female hostages, to me, it gave me, I had a sort of, it was a quiet sort of, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm associated with these people. Like, I was embarrassed by it. Well, what has been your take by that?
Two things. The first thing I would say is this, that the Palestinians have been working overtime to create their narrative, and they're 20 years ahead.
100%.
While we gather tonight to do something that's going to continue life, I can guarantee you somewhere there are pro-Palestinian supporters who have gathered to do the opposite, which is to take life. And so that's one of the major points, that we don't give them enough credit to the cunningness and the energy that they've committed themselves to vilifying and defaming Israel. The other thing is this: if you support Israel in 2024, it's going to cost you something. And the celebrities of this world are too scared to lose anything. They want to present themselves as good when they understand nothing about what goodness is. And so that's one of the biggest challenges. I did a convention, a fan convention, 2 weeks ago. I worked on the Vampire Diaries and the originals. There's an actor whose grandfather was born in Nazareth, moved to Lebanon in 1967. He's a vocal advocate for the Palestinian movement, knows nothing about the Palestinian people whatsoever, can only post memes on his Instagram stories. I'm not allowed to be in the same room as him, per his manager's instructions. Most of the actors on my show will not be in a photo next to me because they don't want to be standing next to someone who supports a genocide. The Palestinians have been completely successful in their PR campaign against Israel. We have to accept that reality, and we have to say, now's the time that we have to fight back on the PR front.
Yes.
Yes.
Incredibly important.
We have to acknowledge the loss because it's been a slaughter.
We have to take the gloves off. We have to stop. The one thing, I was on a call early on in October 7th. A bunch of Jewish billionaires invited me onto a